Okay, let's go. Hello, everybody. Thank you to be there for this meetup. So today we'll talk about TDD, so test-driven development. To do so, we have the pleasure to welcome Valerio Emanuele. He will introduce himself in a few seconds. Let's say it. But before it, we would just wanted to have a small discussion with Rodislav regarding TDD and what can bring for you in your day-to-day life. So Rodislav, what is your, let's say, what are your thoughts regarding TDD?
So in my opinion, TDD is very efficient depending on where you put and how you put it. From my experience, people usually are afraid because this is a new way of working, and lots of people can find it to be difficult to start because it requires lots of coding. You at first sight useless coding because you're writing tests and not writing functionality. However, TDD will help you in a very explicit way to identify your objectives and what you want from your code to do. So one of the ways to get started with TDD, from my experience that was really efficient, was to not start it at the unit test level, but maybe start it at behavior-driven test level. Once you get used to this idea to define the test first that is failing, and then they implement the functionality, which will prove that the test works, therefore the functionality works. This can be a way to get into in an easy way, and then go down to the unit test level. So helpers, APIs, that can be the easiest way to get into TDD. So yeah,
yep.
That's from my experience, and I find it very, very efficient that way.
Yeah, I agree, and I would just add something else. If you use domain-driven design, if you use this approach, it's a really cool way to write your domain model. So it's a really efficient way to do it, and by having this view from the outside of your class, it will provide you more guidance and to design better, to design really good code regarding your domain model. It's really an efficient way to do it.
Yes, absolutely.
So today we, just like we said, we have Valerio. So Valerio will make an hands-on session regarding TDD. So please, Valerio.
Okay, thank you, Johan. So thank you to Rodislav as well and all the Luxembourg software craftsmanship meetup. So I'm a software craftsman with more than 10 years of experience in the field. If you want to know more about me, you can visit my blog, that is valerioemanuele.blog. And so today we are going to talk about TDD, as already said, and we will do a practical and on coding session in Java. But before that, I want to give a basic explanation of the basic of what we are going to do today. And so the first thing is about what is a kata. And so it's a Japanese word that it's used for the karate. And it's a, let's say, a sequence of repeated movements that the goal is to allow to practice so those movements. And in the software field, we borrowed this term. So by meaning to repeat some movements, some exercise, some activities that are good for improving our the quality of our work. And in the case of TDD, is what we are going to do today. So what is TDD? TDD is means test-driven development, and is another style of software development whose goal is to write a clean code that works. This is a very simple, short explanation. There are a lot of definitions like this, but for me, this is the most meaningful and the most direct explanation, and is took by this book, the Test-Driven Development by Example, by Ken Beck. And so that's it. Next question is why TDD? Even in this case, there are plenty of right answer, but for me, what I want to show today is this slide. Sorry, it's sorry. This is a graphic of a guy that did another kata that is the Roman numeral kata, and he did this exercise. This exercise is to convert the Roman numbers to the numbers that we use, so the Arabic notation. And he did this exercise with and without TDD. And what you see, these green and blue bar are the blue without TDD, and the time that he took without TDD, and the green one are the time he took with TDD. And he did 3 sessions, and of course the times reduced, the time to complete reduced with both of the coding style, but you can see there is a lot of difference in the time with and without TDD. For me, it's important to show this because one of the first questions when I talk with people that never practiced TDD is that they say, but I will double my time because by doing TDD, I have to take some more time to write tests when instead I can write directly the production code. So I will take less time without TDD. And this is just let's say an emotion that we feel, but this doesn't reflect the truth because by doing TDD, it's reduced the debugging time, and so this means that the times in the end will be less. And even because as I already said at the first, TDD allows you to write clean code that works, and this means that the code is clean, and so it's more easy to work and to build on the top of that. But we will see this in practice. So these are the 3 laws of TDD. So that is another expression on how to apply the TDD in practice. We will see in the next slide the cycle of TDD. But I think that is good to have to keep in mind both the cycle and the 3 laws of TDD because for me everyone is completing each other, and so this is what it says these 3 laws. And number 1, you must write a failing test before you write any production code. So this is the difference with the, let's say, classic code style. And so here it's inverted what we do. So before we will write a test before writing any production code. Number 2, you must not write more of a test than is sufficient to fail or fail to compile. So so this is I think that it's well described by Ken Beck in his book, Test-Driven Development by Example. That is, let's say the rule, one of the rule of TDD is to proceed by tiny step. And this is another way to say it. So to write only one test, that is enough to make the code fail. Number 3, you must not write more production code. Then it's sufficient to make the currently failing test pass. And so this is again the same thing, to proceeding by tiny steps. And so since we have to respect the cycle, I'll show you the cycle. We have to keep this step very small. So and this means that we will start with a test. The test will be read. So this means that will not pass or even will not compile at first. And then we have to find the fast way to proceed to the green. That means that the test will pass. And so since we will go very fast, maybe we will introduce some duplication or some code that is not very clean, so with some smells. And when we are in the green, we are allowed to refactor the code to make it clean and to remove the duplication. And so when we are here in this refactor, we again to write to continue with building our application, we have to create another test, and this test will be again red, so will not pass. And again, we will repeat this over and over again. Yes, what I said before about this TDD is the TDD called classicist or Chicago School, that is the first TDD that was created, but over the time another style was created, and this is the outside-in TDD that is called as well London School. And it's a different way to proceed that is just today to keep to give you an overview, not to go into the detail, but just to let you know that there is this other way to apply the TDD. And in this TDD, you first write a high-level test that is called the acceptance test, and then there will be a cycle like the one I explained before for this acceptance test, and this test will contain more unit tests, and each unit test will have again this cycle, and the acceptance test will be read at the first, and we will proceed by in this TDD. You proceed by making green all the unit tests, and the end will be green the acceptance test. But I know that I don't have the time to explain better, but you can search. There are a lot of video on YouTube with this explanation. I suggest the one of Sandro Mancuso in his channel, in the Condurance YouTube channel. So we proceed with the Kata today. Since we don't have a lot of time and we have to stay in 1 hour of the meeting, I put some rule today to keep the problem very simple. And so, because the goal here is to practice TDD and not to solve a complex problem. And so we will implement a stack data structure that will contain only integers, and we'll have only this sorry, I will have only this method. So we'll have the push, so to push an element inside the stack, or pick to get, so to view the value of the last element of the stack, and the pop that is like pick, but removes the element from the stack. There are some constraints that we cannot add other public method inside the class. The stack, so as already I said, can contain only integer, and will have a default capacity of 5 integers. The other 3 or 4 constraints are for the borderline case, when the stack is empty. We, of course, is not allowed to do a pick or pop operation, and so we have to throw an exception in this case. And the same for push, when the push is full. When the stack is full, we cannot push other elements, and we will have to throw an exception. And here there are the technological constraints, but for this you can download the skeleton project from the repository, my GitHub repository, and start with that. Okay, if there aren't questions, I will start.
Maybe I just wanted to ask, not maybe to ask, but just to add something. Yeah, I think the introduction was really good, and I just wanted to ask to add something. Sorry for the ask. I don't know why I have this word in mind, but what I think really good with TDD is really this notion of you know exactly when you are done. So you don't you won't over engineer. So it's really this idea. That's why in your numbers, in the figures that you presented with the numeral Kata, the time to make it with TDD was shorter, because by design, as software engineer, we have the we over engineer most of the time. But with TDD, we don't need to over engineer. We just implement what we need to have our test green, and we know exactly when we are done, and we don't want to add more code than needed. So that's why it's really a powerful approach to write code. Yeah.
I completely agree. Thank you for your remark, Jon. And this remember me to say that also the other good advantage of TDD is that is let's say a corollary of what you said, that it gives give you the controls of what are you doing. By proceeding by this tiny step, you have in each step the full control of your code. So you are aware of where you are and where you are going. So, and this is another reason why you in the end spend less time, and of course you don't over engineer. Okay, so if there aren't other questions, I proceed. So the first thing, we, as already said, we have to start with the red. So we have to write a test. So since we have an empty project, I start to create a new test. Okay. blog.sk, and I use the Sandro Mancuso notation of the unit test. So I write the name of the unit test like stack should. Let's see. I put here on the right. So first thing, since we know, we can assume that the stack at the start is empty. I prefer to start by, for example, calling a pick operation, and as is reported in the constraint number 4, we cannot authorize pop or pick when it's empty. So we expect that the stack should throw an exception in this case. So I write the first test. So test method. So should throw an exception. So a stack should throw exception when is empty and pick is called. Okay. So for this session, I'm going to use the AssetJ library that is a library in Java that allows to write more fluent assertions. And for example, for the session, for the exception, sorry, there is a session that is very.
Just one moment, Valerio. Can you zoom the code?
Ah, yes. Thank you.
It will be easier to read.
It's okay.
A little bit more, that will be better. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And this is this one. So I said that exception of type. So we start by by defining which type of exception. In this case, I put a simple runtime exception. Is a off-time exception. Is thrown by here. I assume that we defined a stack and we call pick for that stack with that stack. With message, because we already defined in the constraint the message. So the message, I will do this, copy and paste. Okay. So here, going back to the cycle, we are in the already in the red because we see that the S is not defined. So I will start by this, defining the S, but S must be of type stack. Stack, of course, I don't want to use the stack defined by Java, but I want to define a new one. Sorry, it's not. But okay, I will define by going here. So in the source folder, and use the same package used in the test. So blog.valerioemanuele.sk.stack. Okay. And I put here the stack on the left. Okay. And I initialize the stack. Okay, now I'm still in the red and I have to define the method pick. And so this is my next. Okay, of course we have to respect the signature defined in the problem description. So I go here and pick must return a public integer. I'm returning 0. This is a way, one of the strategy of TDD that is called fake it. So to returning a constant value, because our first goal in TDD is to go in the green bar. So this is what I have to do. Sorry, here is this. Okay, and now I can run my test. Okay, it's building. Okay, so let's say what happened. Yes, of course it's red because it's expecting that it has to throw an exception. So what I'm going to do here is again is just to return to fake it. So I directly throw an exception with the same message. Okay, I remove this. Okay, and I run the test. Okay, and it's green.
Valerio, excuse me, can you zoom the second class, the stack?
Okay, yes, thank you. Okay, I close the other panel. Okay, so now should be clear. So now, according to the cycle, we are in the green, and we are not allowed to write any production code if we don't create another test that make the the tests in the red bar. And so what we can do is that I open the problem, and what we can do is to write the push, and so to push an integer, and so this means that we have to implement the push, and then we will test again in another way the pick, and we will have to see that the pick is not failing anymore with another test when it's not empty. So this will force us to implement really the pick operation. So I proceed. So introduce a new test. So push stack should push an element. Yes, an element when is not full. Okay. So I instantiate again the stack. And then I do stack push, for example, 6. And we are already in the red bar. And the first goal is to go as fast as possible to the green one. And so I implement the push. Okay. And now I run the test. Call it element. I run the test, and it's green. But since we are so we know that now we push an element, we pushed an element inside the stack. If we call now after the push the pick should not throw the exception because it's not anymore empty. This is another technique that is called triangulation. That so it's to, let's say, to write to two cases inside there can be sometimes can be sessions inside the same test, and if both these session pass, or in this case this operation pass, this means that the implementation is correct. Otherwise there is some work to do. That is our case. In fact, if now I launch the test, we will get the exception, so it will be red. So let's see now how to proceed from here. So again, we have to proceed by tiny step, and our goal is to go as fast as possible to the green. And since we are in a stack, and we have to store somewhere the elements, we have to introduce a data structure. So we can use a simple array to store the elements. So I define here an array of integer. I call it elements. Okay, and to initialize it, I create the constructor. Select no, and so element is a new integer of default capacity. Okay, and here I create a constant. The value will be 5 because it's what we put in the constraint of the problem. So the default capacity is of 5 integers. And in this way, we defined the array where to store the elements. So next thing is to store this element in the push operation. One thing is that these are the three public methods that are allowed. Of course, the constructor is let's say a special method, so it's not counted in the list of the public methods. So we are allowed to introduce a public constructor. So next thing, what we can do is to use the fake it technique. So I put the element in the position, the first position. So with the fake it implementation, and let's see if the test will pass in this way. Okay, so now is drawn an exception when it's empty, and this is okay. But the push is not working, still not working. Yes, in fact, we have to refactor the peak because we really don't check if right now if the stack is empty, and we don't have a way right now to check if it's empty or not. So we have to introduce an index for our array that keeps track of the last element that was that is inserted in the stack. So I introduce a new field. I call it index. I initialize it here in the constructor. Okay, and I put here index, and then after I do a push, I can increment this index for the next push. And what I can do here in the peak is to check if is 0, because if it's still 0, this means that it's empty because it was never incremented, because it was never inserted, pushed an element. So if index is 0, throw new, and I throw this. Okay. Otherwise, return elements of index. Since we have to return the last element of the stack, and it was incremented by the push operation, we have to use the previous position of the index, so index less 1. So now I execute the test. Okay, and now both are green. So now what we can do here, since we are in the green, we can clean the code and remove some duplication. And this applies as well for the test. And for the test, for example, we can initialize the stack so as a fixture by using the before annotation, before each annotation of JUnit 5. And so we initialize this here, stack. I put the initialization here, and the stack must be a field. Private. Okay, and I remove the initialization from the second test as well. And now I have to run the test again to see if I didn't break anything. Okay. In fact, this is the other for me and for the author as well, for Kenbeck, that is the power that give you during the refactoring the TDD, because the fact that the tests are green, this give you the proof that the refactor is good and you are not breaking anything, so you can feel safe during this process. So okay, here for the moment in the test I don't see other stuff to refactor, other code to refactor or to remove other duplication. Let's see here in the stack class. Maybe what we can do is to improve the name of the index, because actually the index is pointing to the top of the stack. So maybe it's better to call it top instead of index, even because it's a shorter name, and so it's more clear. So refactor rename top. Okay, and now again, in this case, there is really no need to run again the test, because when the refactor is done by the automatic tool of the ID, there is no need, because for sure, for a simple refactor like this, it will work. So okay, and it's green. So let's continue with the next test to write. So what we can write here, maybe we can write a test for yes, for the we can proceed by testing the pop operation. So a part of returning the top element of the stack, we have to, as well to remove it. And so we can test this. So pop the last element when is not empty. Okay, so we will start with a stack that is not empty, and we will push for that some elements. So push for 8, and we have to asset that s.pop
I think it's because you have you use the assert path from GUnit, not the one from SRG.
Yes, I check the import. I think no. He said that is
peak method, right, rather than a pop method.
Sorry, I didn't get.
I mean, the method name is peak. It's not pop, right?
No, in this case, I'm testing the pop. So we have to test that is returned the last element as well, and but even that this element is it will be removed.
Yeah, I do understand that. Yes, dot. We have defined the method name as peak.
Yes, pick is only to get the last element of the stack, but without removing it from the stack.
Okay.
So this is the difference. It's just to check the last element. But when you need to remove, you need to invoke the pop.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for the question. let me check 1 second in the page of the session, because no, I'm using in the correct way. I see here. So maybe for some reason, for sure, I don't need to write a lambda expression here, so I can remove it. Okay. So first thing, I will implement the method. So maybe it's even for this that is giving error. Okay, so in this case, we push the 3 elements, 4, 5, and 8. What we have to test is that the pop is returning 8, so is equal to 8. And this case is this assertion is not enough to check if it worked, because as already said, it will be the same of the peak if the element still is there. So we again can use the triangulation technique. So to use the 2 assertions to prove that the code is working. And so for this, I write immediately another assertion. And if the code worked correctly, the next element when I invoke the pop to be removed will be 5. And now I run the test. And of course it's red because it's returning 0 because I wrote the fake implementation. And we can watch here the code. And what we have to do is just to decrease the index. So elements of the top. Since when we do a push, the index, the top is increased. So we have to decrease it before to accessing the element. So less top. So for example, when we are with stack empty, we have 0. We push 4, and I go here. Oh, sorry. I go here. Yes. So when we are when we insert the first element, we put this the 0 element, but the index is already pointing. The top is already pointing to 1. Then we pushed. I put here will be clear. When I push 5, the index the 5 is pushing the index 1, but the index is already 2. When I push the 8 is inserted in the second position, but the index in the end will be the 3. So for this reason, I will have to decrease the top before to access the element. And so let's see if now it works. Okay, it's working. And to be sure that I didn't break anything, I ran all the tests. Okay, all of them are green, so I can continue with the next one. If I will open here, it will be more bigger. So we already implemented the pop, push, and pick, but we still miss something. That is, for example, the constraint number 3. We don't have to authorize the push when it's full, and we have to throw an exception. So let's test this as a next test. So push is not authorized when the stack is full. Okay, so the default capacity we already know is 5, so I'm going to push 5 elements. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I use the same assertion used here. To be fast, I copy and paste it. So I set that exception type runtime exception is thrown by push of the sixth element with the message the stack is full. Okay. I run the test. Okay, is red. And yes, the error is another one because is returning index out of bound for length 5. And this is normal because we didn't add a check for that. And what we can do here is to add a check on the top of the pop method. And we can do like this. If the top is equal to elements dot length, we throw an exception. Throw new time exception. The stack is full. Okay. Let's see if it's good. No, it's not good. So because when I'm in the when I pushed 5 element, the index will be 6, but the length is 5. So of course this check is not working. What we can do is to check less 1, maybe elements of length less 1. No. Yes. Of course, I was writing the check in the wrong place because it's in the pop. Sorry, I immediately move it in the right method. Okay, and it's working, and there was no need to add here the less 1 because it's correct. Now what is missing from the constraint is to check to not authorize the pop when it's empty, because until now we checked this condition only for the peak, but it's enough. And to check if we implemented this this feature, we have to add a test. So the stack should not authorize pop when it's empty. So again, I copy the same assertion used for the peak. Okay. And here I have to call stack.pop, and the message is the same. And let's see. Let's run the code. Okay, and of course it's red because we didn't implement the check for the pop. And what we can do is our goal here is not to write still clean code, but we have to move as fast as possible to the green. So for this, I just copy the check of the peak, and then we will see how to refactor it. So I execute again the test. Okay, and this is green. And now I execute all the tests. Okay, so all the 5 tests are green. Now is the moment to refactor the code, because as already said, we have a duplication here for the peak and for the pop. We are doing the same check, so we can extract this check to a common method. And so I use the extract of the ID, so extract method, and I can call it check if stack empty, and refactor. Here, yes, it's giving me another suggestion to pass as parameter the index, but no, I will keep for the moment the original. So now we see we have the check if stack empty for the pick and for the pop, and again I execute the test. Okay, and all the tests are green, and let's see if we have other thing to implement. So you are allowed to, okay, you already implemented all the 3 methods. We don't authorize when it's full, and we don't authorize when it's empty, the pick and the pop. So we already completed this exercise, and you see in the end we implemented the 5 meaningful and useful tests, and that give us the power to refactor and to be sure that our production code is working well. So if there aren't other questions, I can thank you for watching, for being here, and I hope that it was useful. And if you will have other questions after, feel free to contact me. As I already said at the start of the event, you can contact me. You can find my contact in my blog, valerioemanuele.blog. And so thanks again.
Yeah, does anybody have a question for Valerio? Could you just unzoom on the test, please,
Okay.
so we can see the whole file? Okay. Yeah, on both screen, yeah, and on the stack as well, yeah. So it's the final result, yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, we have the functionality and the proof that functionality is doing what we expect it to do.
Maybe on the push element, when this is not full, we can maybe adapt a little bit the test so we are more we are more compliant with the requirement, let's say. So yeah, we can just check what we have as a result in the peak.
Yes, I think it's correct. So we can do like this. I said that. Oh, sorry. Said that s.peak is equal to yes. Thank you for this suggestion, because I think it's more useful to add an assertion at least. Yes.
Yep. And regarding this test, because yeah, if you have already read books on TDD, on testing and so on, here we could have problems with guys like Uncle Bob, because for this kind of stuff, it says basically in one unit test you should only use one behavior, and here on the stack we use both 2 behaviors. Let's say it, we push and we pick. For me, it's a pragmatic way to test it, but I've made this mistake a lot of lot of time in the past. For this kind of stuff, what I've used to do was to let's say to pollute my design. I would have added something on my Slack. Maybe I would have made it public the top or the count, or expose something from to the outside world, just to check if I had really pushed something into a stack. And I think it's really a bad idea. By experience, I know I can say that it's really a bad idea to expose too much stuff from the outside just for testing purpose. And I prefer this way of doing it. It's a more pragmatic way. You push and you pick. So okay, you break one law of testing, but it's really a pragmatic way to do it. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for this remark. I completely agree with you. Yes, and I know there are other schools as well that says that you should write only one session per test. But I think that sometimes there are needs to have a compromise for the design. So yes, thank you for this. The fact that is we were not allowed to add other public methods, so we had to stick on the constraints.
Yeah. So I would say if you need to add something to break your design, or to expose something to the outside world just for testing purpose, maybe you have the problem, and maybe you need to rethink about what you do. Yeah.
Yes, I completely agree.
Okay, so if there is no question, we will publish this video on our YouTube channel, and don't miss the next event that we will organize. So we will have the pleasure to receive in the next one Adam Turnil. He will come to talk about his tool called Kotlin, and maybe you have already read one of his books. The first one regarding behavioral code analysis was called Your Code as a Crime Scene, and the second one was Software Design X-Rays. So it's basically a new way of looking at code through what he has called behavioral code analysis. So it will be a really cool session, and the tool that he has developed is really efficient. So if you want to change your way you are looking at code, it will be really good for you to come at the next session. So it will be next week on the 8th of April. So don't miss it. Okay, thank you, Valerio. And
okay, you're welcome. Thanks to you for hosting me.
And see you at the next session.
Okay, see you soon.
See you soon. Okay, thank you all. Bye.
Bye
Thanks,
bye.
everyone. Bye. Cheers.